Welcome to the Infographics channel. Today we will discuss the infographic titled, The Most Spoken Language, Besides English and Spanish in Every State, published by Visual Capitalist and prepared by Warfinder based on data from the U.S. Census Bureau. The authors of the infographic note that the United States is one of the most linguistically diverse countries in the world. At least 350 languages are spoken at home. Of these, English and Spanish are the most commonly used. I would like to add that in the United States there is no official language at the federal level. At the state level, English is recognized as the official language in 32 of the 50 states and 5 territories. In fact, English is spoken at home by approximately 78% of the population. Spanish is spoken on a daily basis by approximately 13% of the population, i.e., approximately 40 million people. Those of you who visit the United States will hear Spanish more often than English in the conversations of lower-level personnel in transportation, hotel, and catering services, i.e., all the professions we encounter every day on the street or while traveling. Hence, one may get the impression that Spanish is spoken by a very large part of the population in the United States. But it's not like that. The dominance of the Spanish language concerns the states neighboring Mexico, California, Texas, New Mexico, partly Arizona and Florida. The authors go on to point out that over 40 million Americans with German roots still use German at home, and German is the most widely spoken language in 13 states after English and Spanish. German is the third language in the central states, Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Wyoming. I will add that in the north-central states, i.e. North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa and Wisconsin, as much as 30% of the population is of German origin. In the next 7 states neighboring the previously mentioned states, between 20 and 30% of American men and women are of German descent. This may be shocking to some of you, but every 7th American has German roots, 13% of the population. German ancestry, after English, is the largest part of the American population. And not from today. 200 years ago, the English constituted about 60% of the American population, and the Germans 9%, and were then also second. In 1920, approximately 40% of the population was of English descent, and approximately 16% were of German descent, with Germans again occupying second place. Now I will show you another map, prepared by the U.S. Census Bureau, which shows the predominant ethnicity of the population in each county. The light blue is of German origin. This is the kind of surprise that can slightly change the perspective of looking at, for example, historical stories about World War II, the leverage of forces in Europe and other similar stories. There is no other minority in the United States with as large a representation and geographic spread as the German minority. And similar proportions were in the decades before and during World War II, as the main waves of migration from Europe to the United States took place in the 19th and early 20th centuries. And now please use your imagination, and see in your mind's eye an American recruit from the Middle States, whose parents are German, and who is sailing to Europe, for example, to the Normandy landings. And their people like him are shot at by German soldiers in different uniforms. Such cases must have been frequent, according to the presented data. Please think about it. But back to the infographic, the second language is French. This language is dominant in Louisiana, North and South Carolina, Maine, Maryland, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Third in terms of the number of states, but second in terms of population is the Chinese language, spoken at home by 3,400,000 Americans, dominant in 6 states, Delaware, California, Kansas, New York, Pennsylvania, Washington. Portuguese is spoken in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Utah. Arabic language in Iowa, Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee. And listening to some materials on the internet, some of you would probably prefer another Semitic language. Vietnamese language in Mississippi, Oklahoma and Texas. Korean language in Georgia and Virginia. The indigenous Navajo language in Arizona and New Mexico. In individual states, the Polish language is in Illinois, Russian in Oregon, Japanese in Hawaii, Tagalog or Filipino in Nevada, indigenous Aleut in Alaska, indigenous Dakota in South Dakota, Creole in Florida, Hmong in Minnesota. The Hmong language occurs in China, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam and Thailand. Finally, I would like to repeat that the infographic presented today concerns the third languages spoken in a given state. Number 1 is by far the dominant language, English. Spanish comes second, driven by Latino migration, which has accounted for about half of U.S. immigration from the 1990s to today. The Spanish language will enjoy a high position in the United States for a long time, because Latino Americans, after Pacific Islanders, have the highest fertility rate among the major ethnic groups in the United States. However, English is necessary to advance in American society. Greetings. I invite you to comment on this material.